What's up everyone, this is Danny, and today I'm going to be looking at one of the most important devices for Android this year, and this is the Google Nexus 5. The Nexus 5 is the follow-up to the surprise low-cost Android powerhouse of last year, and even though it was a great device, it had some major quirks. I mean, many of these quirks were overlooked due to the ridiculously cheap price, and naturally it was a hit. Google decided not to change what was working and decided to partner with LG again on its new flagship. But I'm glad they did, because what we get is a beautiful minimalistic device that draws its DNA loosely from LG's flagship, the G2. Although the build is primarily plastic, the device feels premium at the same time, with ceramic accented buttons and subtle curves. It's fairly thin as well, and I personally dig the minimalistic look here on the Nexus 5. And the largest upgrade this year is a 5-inch 1080p display that is easy on the eyes, and it's an IPS panel for decent viewing angles and good color replication. The Nexus 5 is available in either black or white, and there are some subtle differences between the two. So to see a full breakdown, make sure that you watch my unboxing video where I go over all the differences there. LG and Google also decided to throw in the latest silicon by Qualcomm, and that is that Beast Snapdragon 800 with 2 GB of RAM and the Adreno 330 GPU. On the back, you will find a 8-megapixel primary shooter with optical image stabilization, and we'll go over quality later on in the review to see if this camera is any good. When you fire up the Nexus 5, you'll be greeted with Google's latest Android experience, and that is version 4.4 KitKat. And even though this is just a point update, it brings many improvements to the UI and to the performance of Android. When you swipe to the left now, you will find Google Now. And this is kind of like Blink Feed on your Nexus, but powered by Google Now. The icons are larger, and the UI has a much more polished feel, and the performance is fantastic. I love the new visual changes to KitKat, and everything feels new but familiar at the same time. And of course you get a few new wallpapers on this new 1080p display, and that's what I look forward to in every Nexus or Android update. I love them. And there's a new Hangouts app that integrates SMS, but I hope to see a tight integration here, for there are separate tabs for SMS and messages. And the dialer gets new upgraded search integration where you just type, and even gives you local businesses to call on your search results. Awesome. Similar to the Moto X, the Nexus gets a OK Google voice prompt from the home screen. Only from the home screen though, so no active listening like the Moto X, and that is a bummer. What all of this equates to is one of the best smartphone experiences out of the box, with a few downsides, and we'll go over that later on in the review. But the feel of the matte finish and the light weight makes it a great grip, and the phone call quality was great on the AT&T LTE network, with clear voices and a loud earpiece. No matter if you're browsing a graphically heavy website like The Verge, I found scrolling to be much improved in this Nexus. And if you're reading a book or sharing photos of the photos you took that day to a friend, the experience is a pleasure. I mean, the Snapdragon 800 chipset is silky smooth. Watching YouTube videos is a breeze, and even playing the most graphically intensive games like Dead Trigger 2 is no match for the Nexus 5. I really enjoyed hooking it up to the new Moga Hero controller for hours of gaming goodness, so gamers will not be disappointed in the new Nexus 5. Okay, so all this good talk going on here, but there always has to be bad stuff, right? Like any device, there are always downsides, so let's start with the speaker first. This is a single speaker first of all, not stereo speakers, and there are inconsistencies in the playback volume. And we'll compare that to the iPhone 5s single speaker in just a minute. And Google stated that it's a software issue, and by the time that you're watching this, it could be resolved. So let's compare it to the iPhone 5s on YouTube videos right now. This is the brand new Google Nexus 5, once again manufactured by LG. This is the brand new Google Nexus 5, once again manufactured by LG. They are both single speakers, but the iPhone is much louder. But what about music playback? It is much louder. Have a listen. definitely not the loudest speaker or best sounding speaker on the block, so be aware of that when you're buying this device. And headphones will be your best friend, but the headphone quality is great, so that kind of makes up for the bad speaker. But when playing games through the speaker, it's adequate though. So I hope Google gets all this sorted out by the next update. So let's talk about the camera. It is an 8 megapixel shooter with optical image stabilization, a spec that only a handful of mobile devices can tout right now. And Google's advertising this Nexus as a camera-centric device. Well, there is a new HDR Plus feature that is supposed to take better pics in any lighting condition, but man, is it slow. And it takes at least a second or two to snap the picture. And the shutter on the regular mode is much faster, but you're going to sacrifice some quality. Let's take a look at some of the sample photos right now. The Nexus 5 is capable of taking some decent photographs. As evidenced by these pictures, it looks like what you would see coming from any other device with an 8 megapixel shooter and above. But any camera nowadays can take a good photo under good lighting conditions. And the problem with the Nexus camera is in the software. I found details to be muddy in some shots, and I found exposure to be just completely wrong in some situations, and I would have to retake the shot a few times to get better results. Focusing can also be an issue, and even though it doesn't happen all the time, it can get really annoying. And I found macro focus to be a pain half the time, but when it locked on, it took a decent photograph. Low lighting conditions also produced mediocre shots with some loss of detail, and I did find color replication to be decent in low lighting condition, and the pics are passable, but it is definitely something you don't want to rely on for low light performance. If you are patient though, you can get some nice shots with the Nexus 5 camera. The HDR Plus mode really helped the quality and the look of the photos, and I think the differences are staggering. Not in all situations, but most. I see a major difference in color and most importantly contrast, where I feel like the non-HDR photos are lacking in contrast, making them look washed out. And here are a few more examples. I think you get the point. The HDR Plus mode is where you want to be in if you want to get good photographs from the Nexus 5. And also thought that the photo viewing and editing experience was weird, having two photo apps on board. There's the regular gallery app that we're used to here with its own set of filters and editing with that cool animation, but there's also a Photos app which has integration with Google Plus and Google Photos that also has its own set of filters, which I prefer by the way. But I think they should integrate this into one app and it could be less confusing. But I had fun with these filters and these made some of the shots I took on the Nexus very unique. The 1080p video fares better with good detail and smooth frame rates. And of course I have to show you the disgusting stuff. I thought since I always show pretty flowers on the videos, I would mix it up with some creepy crawly content. And I thought the video could have some more contrast, but I found the focus to be fast and adequate. The video is a go on the Nexus 5, so no worries about the 1080p video recording. Last and not least, let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room, and that is battery life. There is a 2300 milliamp battery that is non-removable, and I'm sure you heard that the battery is terrible. But it's not that the battery is actually really terrible, but it's inconsistent. I'm giving an example of a great day with the Nexus here with moderate use, and today I'm having good battery life. But if you have your screen all the way up and enjoy your new display like you want to, or do some heavy gaming, then you will see a major hit. On average with heavy use, I got about 6 hours on a charge. Moderate use, I got about 8 or 9 hours on a single charge. And your mileage may vary, but this is not the worst battery in the world as you may have heard. It's just inconsistent, so be prepared when you buy the Nexus 5. So what do I think about the Nexus 5? I think this is the best phone money can buy right now. And let me explain why. Android 4.4 KitKat, in my opinion, is the best mobile OS out there, period. And this may change later after later iterations of other mobile OSs, but right now, this is it. KitKat is a must-have for Android fanatics because it's the only way to get pure Android out of the box and even test out experimental progressions such as running Art or Android Runtime instead of Dalvik. It's not really that noticeable when you pin them up side by side, but there's a small performance gain. Sure, the battery's not as good, but they included Qi wireless charging, and wireless bases like this RAV Power charger with internal battery gave me a true wireless charging experience. And the battery charges really fast, by the way, so that is a huge plus. For $350, this is the best bang for the buck mobile phone you can buy on the market right now. You can choose your carrier, with a few exceptions, and not wait for any updates, and for the first time it has the fastest silicon you can buy at this time. And the 1080p screen, NFC, LTE connectivity are just icing on the cake. And yes, there are faults with this phone, but for half the price of the modern flagships out there, let's hope that Google makes the adequate software updates to make this one of the best experiences on the smartphone market today. Whether you're coming from an iPhone or a Windows phone, don't be afraid to give this Nexus 5 a try, for the $350 price tag makes it pretty easy to do. I think this is the best Nexus that they've ever made. And if you're not cost conscious though, there are better cameras out there and maybe a better smartphone experience for you at the top tier. But with the combination of price and software and just the integration as a whole and Android 4.4 KitKat, I think this is one of the strongest experiences you can get on the market right now. Alright, well that does it for me, and make sure you leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more videos like this, and follow me on Twitter @SuperScientific.